it's really good for us. We've worked really hard to get here, and to see so many people, reacting positively to our music is you get a good warm feeling. It does obviously then reflect from YouTube into things like Spotify, etc. That's got a lot of extra views, so it's all good and positive for us. Well, the next album actually is already, the demos are all finished already. There's always a time lag from the way you work, finish a project, and then it gets released. Like we started, Indelible Stain was finished and released in September, and the various tracks have been released every 2 or 3 weeks since. And of course, culminating in the success of Indelible Stain, the main track off that album. And there's a progressive build-up of interest in the work and the following, etc. So while this is all going on, I'm writing new stuff. So I'd almost finished writing this album before we released Indelible Stain, and in the last few months in between all the promotional work, etc., I've been finishing off the demos for the next album. So they actually are now completed. I mean, there's quite a process we go through on that, but we've selected the 13 from the 30 odd original ideas we had. We whittle those 30 down into probably about 20 that I then would do proper demos of, and then once I've done the demos, I will write the lyrics, and then we finalise which ones we really think are going to work. Then we start the process of recording all those properly. So that's where we've got to now. So we will record properly the music, for instance, and Grant will do all his vocals, and then it will go through the mixing and mastering process. So I expect we would like to have the next album ready for release before Christmas this year. Well, I think I've always been a great follower of current affairs, if you want to call it that, and I have to say most of it depresses one these days, particularly with the quality of leaders we have in the world at the moment, what is very worrying. But this is what frames a lot of our music, is what's happening now. So I think that's what keeps it current. I mean, on Indelible Stain, we've got a couple of tracks that are, what can I say, social comment tracks. Escalator to Truth, what's just been released a couple of weeks ago, that's got quite some interesting things to say about what's going on. One of the next tracks that will be released probably in a couple of weeks' time, about a month's time I expect, is Voltaire's Tears, what is really a commentary what's gone on with the impingement on people's human rights and some of the poor decision making that goes on in the world these days. So, and the next album has got quite a lot to say about it, because I've just finished writing all the lyrics, and they really have been framed by what's going on with World Economic Forum meetings, some of the decisions that people are making. We have wars going on in between two countries that maybe should have been stopped a long time ago. So there's always a lot of things that frame, what we do. Actually, I think there's more censorship now than there has been in the past. I mean, it's with the advent of the internet has opened things up without any doubt, and allowed us to get our music to a much wider audience. But the last couple of years has seen some detrimental changes to censorship on the internet. For instance, we had an old track called Troubled Times. We redone that track and really released it on Regeneration. And Regeneration was a collection of the best tracks of our first 5 or 6 albums. And Troubled Times was written probably 12, 13 years ago, well before the coronavirus pandemic, or whatever we want to call it. And we did a video, and the video of Troubled Times got banned by YouTube. They wouldn't allow it to be published. And we didn't know exactly what was wrong. So we went through the video very carefully, and we had a 2-second section in it where there was a shopkeeper closing a sign, and it went from open to closed, and on the closed card there was closed due to coronavirus. And that video got censored for that. We took that 2-second clip out, and then it was uploaded without any problem. So there is quite a lot of censorship on most platforms these days. And under the catch-all, it doesn't meet our terms and conditions, etc. But I'm a great believer in free speech. As an artist, I think I would have liked to have known how to work my computers as well as I do now. That's made life a lot easier. I think also how you learn how to promote your work, certainly far more efficiently now than what we used to. As an artist, I mean, I can still play my guitars and things like I did then, so that hasn't really made any difference. I think you get more skilled at songwriting because better practice. And I think you'd also learn to spend more time on things. So, and be far more self-selective. Questioning, don't just think, oh, that sounds good. Because it might sound good to yourself, but when you've listened to it about 10 times, it doesn't. I mean, I have a process for when I do my demos, like, as I said earlier, the demos for the next album are done. They're in my car and on various places at home, and I listen to them time and time and time again. And if after about 15 or 20 listens, I get to skipping a track, I know that track's got to go, because I've got to be able to listen to it a lot of times, because the way I record is, when I record that track, I will probably end up listening to it probably 100 times as I put on, go back and record the guitars properly, the bass properly, the keyboards properly. And it's a process of, when you're doing that, you're always going over and over the track from the start to the end, time and time again. So if I get bored with a track, then I know other people will. So I get definitely more self-selective, I think is the best way to put it. I create music really for me, mainly. So if other people like it, it really is a bonus for me. I mean, if they don't like it, I listen, definitely, because I then go back. I think that's how I've become more self-selective, because I think in the past I used to just put stuff out, or we used to just put stuff out, and maybe didn't, sort of brushed over some negative comments probably. Where now I'll listen to it and then thinking, I could have done that better, or could have done that differently. Well, that was a great review for us. The magazine, a magazine with sort of power play, to actually give us a 2-page spread. We were ecstatic about that, and we didn't expect it when we did the interview. So that's been a real bonus for, to come off the back of the release of this album. I think that shows you, the reach, how far it's reached. People have listened to it, they like the album, and I think, to get into power play and places like that is just fantastic. It just shows you a vastment, I think, of our reach and support. No. I mean, when Devine Lie started, I'd been recording, I was getting into recording late 90s, because it was becoming easier to sort of record at home. And when I started with a Tascam Porter Studio, what is based on a cassette. And you'd have probably 4 tracks, I think it was. I can't remember now, seems such a long time ago. Then I got into recording on computers and used, initially I used a program called Guitar Tracks, and that allowed you to record, I think it was 10 or 12 tracks of music. So I've been slowly getting into that, and then that sort of morphed, if you like, into Devine Lie in about 2003 or 4, and then of course computers have become more powerful, programs had become better, so I had a couple of DAW programs that I could use for setting up. Initially I used to use Sonar, and that progressed over the years into the package it is now. I still use it actually a lot, and it's a rock solid program, but it's so much easier these days with the more powerful computers and track counts, and you could do 10 tracks back in about 204, then you'd have to freeze everything up and work off that, then probably move it around a bit, because the computers weren't particularly powerful. Home computers weren't particularly powerful back then, and the software wasn't sophisticated. So the software has become more and more sophisticated over, I suppose, 20 years. I started playing guitar when I was probably 12. I started playing piano when I was earlier than that. I was younger than that, because my father always had. We lived in a very small council house, but we had a grand piano at the house, and it filled up one room. And my father had learned to play piano by ear when he was in the RAF. He was a pilot in the Second World War, and he was the piano player in the NAFI. So he used to. There's some story evolved around this. It was a baby grand piano, and I think he knew somebody, and they sold it to him for next to nothing. Probably before I was born, I think this was. And it was always in the house, and he would because he worked very hard, so he only had Sunday mornings to play the piano, and he played it so badly and out of tune, but he enjoyed it. So we always used to avoid that room when he was having his tinkle, because he played purely by ear. And but he did insist, like my 2 sisters both had a lot of piano lessons, but I think they forced it down their throats, because both of them, once the lessons were over, once they got all their qualifications, and they both got like grade 9 or whatever it is, piano thing, they never played ever again. And I went to, I did have some piano lessons when I was young, but they weren't really very sexy piano lessons, so I took up the guitar, so it was far better. But music's always was in our house. I mean, come Christmas, there'd be no TV. There'd be the family all round having a sing-song. I mean, I think that's a bit of the Irish coming out in the family, but it's we've always enjoyed, getting the guitar out. It's always been good. So I first was in a group when I was about 13, and we weren't terribly good, believe me, but it was good fun. Lots of noise, lots and lots of noise. One of the places we practiced was our bass player's parents' house, and their next door neighbour was certifiably deaf, and they complained once. It was quite interesting. A lot of punk type music.